And anytime we go to a country that grows avocados, but by the way, Canada does not, we go do that. So this is Peru. At the end of 2007, the Northern Peru Union and the Southern Peruvian Union had 24,000 and 32,000 respectively, baptisms. North Pacific Union Conference, where I came from, Montana, Washington, and stuff like that, 2,238. A bit of a difference when you look at that. The ratio of Adventists to the general population in the United States and Canada, it is 302 to 1. In Peru, it's 36 to 1. So you can see a tremendous difference, 10 times the amount of Seventh-day Adventists in Peru as compared to North American division. Now, Peru has three distinct climates. You have the desert coastal region, you have the mountains, and that's where you find Lake Titicaca and places like that. And then you have the jungle, which is the Amazon jungle. We, up in the upper right-hand corner there, you'll find a little place called Iquitos. I guess I can try a laser. Yay! Iquitos is right there. And it's a city of 500,000 people, largest city in the world without any road leading to it. You get there by plane, you get there by boat, and that's it. There's no way to get there. I mean, there's foot trails, but other than that, there's no way to get there except through a boat. It's quite a packed city right along the Amazon River, and the people get around in these little tricycles everywhere. There's just little tiny taxis. People, the banana leaves are used in their cooking, much like we would use tinfoil. And they don't eat the banana leaves, but they're very much used for cooking. The patron saint of Iquitos, because the Catholic Church is very large there, 90% of Peruvians are Catholic. The patron saint is John the Baptist. And on the very special day that we celebrate John the Baptist, they have a dish. They take this rice and beans and meat and vegetables, and they put it in this kind of little bag made out of the banana leaf, and they cook it. And the meal is called John the Baptist's head, or the head of John the Baptist. It was quite interesting eating the head of John the Baptist. Well, lots of food in the stores there. By the way, did you know that you don't have to refrigerate eggs if they've not been washed? You know, anybody that's been in farming, they'll last months without refrigeration. And so that's how they sell them there. They sell bananas. This is my son Paul looking at the banana ball he ordered, and he wasn't too exactly excited about it. Actually, it turned out really good. The banana balls were really nice. So you can see about a third of the city floods every year when the Amazon increases in size. And you get around on boats. That's my son to the left. It's my son Derek. And to the right is our son Paul. We went there and made friends with a Sunday church pastor and his wife. My wife, Linda, is in the middle, and she's in the right. And we delivered some felts to them for children's programming. And the reason why we knew her is because I had baptized a lady in Kalispell, Montana. And she joined our church, and then she asked me, she says, do I have to leave my other church? I said, no, you can keep going to your other church. I said, you can be a dual citizen between churches. And because her brother is the pastor of that church. So she kept going to both churches. I do that in particular for a reason, because I find that newly baptized people who are Seventh-day Adventists, they get so excited what their new belief is, and they share it. And it's a good place for them to be in their church. Anyways, we delivered them to her. Tremendous young lady. She grew up in a very wealthy home in Peru, married a preacher, and now they live in the slums of Iquitos. And she's ministering and loving the people. And it was just really neat. Held 2 different evangelism campaigns. Did anybody know Spanish here? Don't you love the name of the city? That's just fantastic. Primero de enero. I mean, how do you name your city January 1st? That's pretty neat. I love that name. We held meetings there. We have a translator there, really neat guy. I was preaching about this, the sanctuary of God, and I said that the throne of God was like a couch, and it would seat two people. He didn't understand the word couch. He had never heard the word couch before. He knew what sofa was, but he never heard the word couch. He thought I said cow. And so now he's telling the people that the throne of God is a cow that both God and Jesus sits on, and we got that corrected. So we did the normal planning as you have for meetings. If you've ever done meetings before, you plan the meeting, you invite the community, you have music programs and children's programming, you visit the people who come, and you have new member follow-up. And this is a packed place. We had lots of people come and look at all the children there. And we baptized one family, a mother and her two daughters. Precious souls. We were really thrilled with that. But we did another set of meetings in a place called Putumayo. And in Putumayo, it was a little bit different. And again, a packed place. But the Putumayo, 7 people were baptized. And it was just a better results for meetings. What was the difference? Well, we did our advanced planning, but we did it with the small group leaders. There's these groups that meet in homes during the week. They call them grupos pequeños. And we did the planning with them. And there you find there's a gentleman by the name of Santiago, and he's doing the planning with the small group leaders. And they did the planning, and the invitations we gave were not to the general public, but to the people that they were studying Bible with. And the visitation was done by the small group leaders, and the new members were incorporated into those small groups. You see the difference between those two sets of meetings? You see, grupos pequeños in South America is made up of 3 to 4 families, about average 7 people. They meet 1 or 2 times a week in a home. They meet for fellowship and prayer, study, testimony, and they report how their ministry to their neighbors and friends is going. It's kind of an accountability system and a support system. So each one of the members is involved in that. They have personal accountability, and they challenge each other, and they care for each other's needs. If somebody is sick and they can't afford the medicine, the small group puts their money together and helps that person. It's a tremendous situation you find there. So the group member responsibilities, they meet regularly, they commit to personal discipleship, and they pray for 7 individuals. Now, what I'm talking about is how to get a Bible study. And what I'm saying is the way to get Bible studies is put yourself in a small group. Have a small group that meets every week. If you want to be able to reach souls for Christ, small groups are proven throughout South America to be the most effective way to do that. Small group members give Bible studies to their neighbors and friends. They bring friends to a small group meetings, and they prepare these people for a reaping meeting that they hold. So I love this statement from Ellen White on the 7th testimony. The greatest help that can be given our people is to teach them to work for God and depend on Him, not on the ministers. When I was down there, I met with a pastor there, and he had 25 churches. Pastor of 25 churches. Now, I was feeling pretty good because I had 5 churches. And he had 25 churches. He had 1,000 members he had to watch over. Now, can the pastor do all that? It's impossible. Impossible. So what happened? He trained and developed his members, especially his elders, for ministry. So what would the pastor do in Peru? First and foremost, these guys have such a big task ahead of them. They are faithful in spending that first hour of their day with God. They visit their small group leaders in their homes, and they conduct weekly training sessions for small groups. Now, I want to tell you, I asked this pastor, I said, when do you train your members for your small group leaders? He says, I train them Sabbath morning. I said, great, can I come and follow you? He said, sure. Well, Sabbath morning, he takes me. 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm an early riser, so that wasn't no major problem for me, but I was dressed and ready to go at 5 o'clock in the morning. Comes by, it's all dark, little tricycle, motorcycle, and he picks me up, and we take an hour's drive out to one of his churches. And we get there at 6 o'clock, and there's already 15 people waiting for him. He does the training session. He teaches them how to teach a lesson. He teaches them some different things on how to have your small group, how to care for your members. At 7:30, he's done. There's 25 people there. They're done. They go across the street to a church member's house, and they have breakfast there at the house. Amazing commitment. But they get results from that. Visit one to three small groups each evening. He has so many small groups that he has to go do that. And then attend 4 to 5 churches on a Sabbath. That's the life of a Peruvian pastor. It's hard work, but they have tremendous responsibilities. Teach the leader to, the goals in training a small group is you teach the leader to be a disciple of Jesus personally. If you want your small group leaders to become disciples of Jesus, you have to be a disciple of Jesus yourself. And they teach them how to preserve the small group members. You don't want to lose members. You want to care for them. Just like a father would care for his children, the small group leader would care for them. And then multiply the small groups by training other leaders. So you're always looking to train someone to replace you or train someone to start a new one. Now, if you were to look in the book of Acts, chapter 14, it's very fascinating. You find that Paul goes and travels around starting new churches. First, he starts in Antioch, then Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe. Now, when Paul was doing this, he was traveling to these different areas, and you know the stories there, they're really fascinating stories. And he would get stoned, or somebody would hurt him, or then Lystra, I think it was, that they tried to offer oxen to him. Finally, he goes to Derbe, had a successful time there. But here's the fascinating thing. If you have a Bible, you could open up to Acts chapter 14. Take a look at those verses there. It's interesting what Paul did. Paul is now completed his this is verses 21 to 23. Paul has now completed his missionary journey there. This is his first missionary journey. He's on his way back. And what does he do? He goes back to the same churches he was just at. And here we are, Acts chapter 14, starting with verse 21. When they had preached the gospel to that city and had made many disciples, they returned to Lystra and to Iconium and to Antioch. Listen to this, verse 22. Strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in faith, and saying that through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. And when they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. Notice there, what did Paul do? He appointed elders, right? He appoints elders, he develops them for ministry, and then he releases them from ministry and he moves on. So what is God's counsel for pastors today? The minister should not feel that it's his duty to do all the talking and all the laboring and all the praying, but he should educate workers in every church. What's the main role of the pastor? Educate the members for work. Educate the members for work. I learned this when I was in Los Angeles. I was given my first church on my own. My mother-in-law said, "Now you're a real pastor." And I had that church for 6 months, about 50 people on a Sabbath morning in a sanctuary that seated 400. A little depressing on a Sabbath morning. But we got up to 70, and things were looking pretty good and exciting. And then the conference called me up and says, "We're going to give you a second church. It's going to be over in Palmdale, California, 45 miles away. Go and have fun." And my head elder was so angry. He says, "We're just starting to grow, and look what you're doing. You're taking our pastor away." That was the best thing that ever happened. I realized I couldn't do all the labor myself, and so I had to spend my time training the elders, deacons and deaconesses for ministry, And after 4 years, that church had gone from 70 to 200 on a Sabbath morning. What happened? The church members were obliged to take on the work. And they did it well. They did it really, really well. I spent my time developing them for ministry, and the church grew. Let different ones take turns in leading the meetings and in giving Bible readings, and in so doing you will be calling into use the talents which God had given you, and at the same time educating workers. That's the main role of the pastor, is to develop you for ministry. Yes? Very good. You stop being a pastor and become a rabbi? How's that?
What does rabbi mean?
Teacher. Excellent. Excellent.
That's why I call pastor and rabbi.
I like that. I like that. That's excellent. So the pastor is a mentor. If the proper instruction were given, if the proper methods were followed, every church member would do his work as a member of the body. He would do Christian missionary work. But listen to this last sentence. But the churches are dying, and they want a minister to preach to them. See over there? Churches are dying, and they want a minister to preach to them, which is the last thing they need. So, how long should a pastor stay in one church? You can look at this one yourself if you want. Acts chapter 14:3. Iconium was there a short time. Berea, he stayed longer. Ephesus, he was there for 2.5 years. Or 3 years. Now, Ellen White makes the statement that pastors should not leave their church too soon. And we read that and we say, well, a pastor should stay 10 years in his church. It's not what she's saying. She's saying, and if you look at the context of it all, she's talking about a new church plant. See, the pastor comes in, he starts a church, and the problem was pastors would plant a church, they would hold evangelistic campaigns, people would get baptized, and then the pastor would leave to go start another church. Kind of, so you can brag another, hold more meetings. But the pastor needs to stay there so that the church can be equipped. That's what Paul did. Paul stayed long enough to get the church equipped, developed for ministry, and then he would move on. So this is my sweet wife, our son, and a borrowed parrot. So how were the pastors supported? Now I get to ask you this question. This is a fun question. Why do we send money to the conference? Why don't we just keep it ourselves? Why not just have the churches keep the money themselves rather than sending the money to the conference and the conference pay for the pastor? It's interesting. Take a look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I find this text very helpful in understanding what's behind that. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 7 to 9. Paul is writing to the Corinthian church. Now, is the Corinthian church a healthy church? Not at all. Not a healthy church at all. And take a look at what he's saying here. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 7 to 9. Or did I commit a sin in humbling myself so that you may be exalted? Because I preached God's gospel to you free of charge. I robbed other churches by accepting support from them in order to serve you. And when I was with you and was in need, I did not burden anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied my need. So I refrained and will refrain from burdening you in any way. Who paid the pastor's salary for the church in Corinth? Macedonia. Macedonia. The reason why we give tithe to the conference is so that the pastor, instead of spending his time in the churches that already exist, it's so the pastor can move to Tofino and start a church in Tofino. I'm volunteering for that position because I grew up surfing in San Diego. I'm ready to go. Except y'all that's cold out there. But that's what it's for, because the early church, when a church was established, the pastor moved on and the members continued the ministry. They were strengthened by that, and the church grew fastest when it was that way. I love this statement here. Instead of keeping the ministers at work for the churches that already know the truth, let the members of the churches say to these laborers, go work for souls that are perishing in darkness. We ourselves will carry forward the services of the church. We will keep up the meetings and, by abiding in Christ, will maintain spiritual life. We will work for souls that are about us, and we will send our prayers and our gifts to sustain the laborers in more needy and destitute fields. So the way, yes?
When I was reading something about James White, how the tithing system came about. Because there had people preaching going different places, and they couldn't live.
Right.
Because they had a famine, and they couldn't survive in the field. And then they had said, okay, give us some money at 16, and then that wasn't working out. When the Semitic deliverance, that wasn't working out. And so somebody from Malachi and said, we do the tithing system. So that year, they went from 60,000 a year, 140,000. They were able to have enough money to pay the ministers and to go and preach. That they could have from otherwise.
And that's the point. You move to a new area, so you decide to plant a church in Tofino, and there's nobody there to support the pastor, but the tithe from other churches does that, and that was behind it. And there was a church in Minnesota, and it was a church of ethnic background from Southeast Asia. I forget, it was the Hmong people or something like that. They read this statement, and then they told their pastor, there is a large group of people of our same language that are in a city in the neighboring state. They're in Minnesota. So they send the pastor to the neighboring state. And they told the pastor, we'll be fine without you. You go plant a new church. He would come back and visit them once a month or something like that. But they continued on their own, and that's how the church, I think in Wisconsin, of this one language group was started. So the question is, how do you increase baptisms? You want to increase baptisms. You want to baptize more. How do you do it? Well, I'll tell you how they did it in 2 Corinthians in Peru. And I love this little picture here. You can see it. Those are turtles. And the one would sit down, and the other ones would just put their little paws on the front of it, and that's how they would hang out. I love 2 Timothy 2, verse 2. It's so powerful in the way it describes the ministry of the pastor. And the things that you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So how many generations are there in that statement?
So we see that we used to have what we call on-the-job training many years ago.
Okay.
So we have people who say 1-in-1.
Yep.
So you have 20 members in the church. If each member win one person for the year, like December we have 40.
Well, this is how, notice there, Paul taught Timothy. You've got Paul, you've got Timothy, faithful men, and others. There's 4 generations. There's 4 generations there that you find, and if you really want to feel like you experience something, just look at 4, if you've got 4 generations of spiritual influence. Now, Pastor Eli, this one in South America, he increases baptisms by adding small group leaders. He didn't talk about how many baptisms he's going to add. He talked about how many small group leaders he was going to develop and train for ministry. And that is how Pastor Eli did it. And I like the statement from 7 Testimonies, page 20. Let the minister devote more of his time to educating than to preaching. Let him teach people how to give to others the knowledge they have received. So the pastor should spend more time developing his members for ministry rather than preaching. And Pastor Eli was planning to add an additional 40 small group leaders. In laboring where there are already some in the faith, the minister should at first seek not so much to convert unbelievers as to train the church members for acceptable cooperation. That is our main role. Our main role is to develop you as ministers. Now, I love to think about the model of ministry. It's the greatest opportunity of leading I've ever found. if you are a business owner and you have employees, you ask an employee to do something, they do it for the motivation that you're the boss, right? The boss is paying you, you do what he's asked you to do. Pastoring, who's paying who or whom? The people are paying the pastor. In their mindset, sometimes they say, we're paying you your salary, you go do this. But in reality, it's the opposite. In pastoring, you take people who are paying your salary and you put them to work. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard of. It's kind of like, but that model already exists. It's like if you go to the gym and you hire a personal trainer. Who's doing all the work? Yourself, right? The personal trainer is there to help you. It would do you no good if you went to the gym and watched the personal trainer exercise. She is already in shape. That's why you hired them. So I want to tell you about Santa Clara Church. This Santa Clara Church is a unique church in Peru. I was pretty thrilled with it. What makes it unique is, remember, Peru is 90% Catholic, 3% Seventh-day Adventists. In this town, the largest church is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, that's unique. How is it that they could be the largest church? Well, they are rampantly devoted to small groups. They do their small groups like anything. So much so that when the conference appointed them a pastor who did not believe in small groups, they called the conference and said, get rid of this guy. We want a pastor who believes in small groups. And the conference said yes. So the Santa Clara Church, they are so independent that you can see they have concrete floor. It goes about 2/3 of the church, and then it's dirt after that. Now, why is that? Because as they can afford to pay for it, they would put more concrete in. They weren't dependent upon any missionaries handing out funds. They were very, very faithful in doing what they do there. And God has blessed them. So what's the role of administration? Now, I did this part because I did this for my conference president. But they set direction and goals. They produce useful materials. They identify failures, and they provide solutions. I was fascinated by the conference president and the secretary in Iquitos in Peru that flew out to Peru. They're going to hold a weekend training session on how to be better small group leaders. What they did is they showed up a week early. A week early. What were they doing? They visited every small group leader in their home. That's how much they believe in those small group leaders. They visited the small group leaders in their home, and when the training session came, what happened? Everybody showed up, right? So that is how they did it. So when I was down there, the South American Division set a goal of 100,000 baptisms in one day in November 2009. Now, 100,000 baptisms in one day, you've got my attention. I'm really curious, how are you going to pull this off? It's really simple. The South American Division has 93,000 active small groups. To set a goal of 100,000 baptisms is simple math. It was the same year that the North American Division set a goal of 100,000 baptisms in the entire year. Now, when I listened to our North American Division discuss how we were going to get those baptisms, it was all about faith. God can do this for us. We're putting our faith in God. We're going to go to work, but God's going to do the wonderful. They all spoke about faith. Frankly, I think it was simply presumption. In South America, it's simple math. How is it? They know that every small group, on average, baptizes 2 people per year, one in the spring and one in the fall. That's how it works there. You see, it works like this. You reap what you sow. So every small group has an average of 7 people, and they ask each member to pray for 7 people. So you're praying for 49 people, let's say 50 people on average. They're given, each small group is given 10 sharing books. You know, we have sharing books every year. The ABC comes out with a new sharing book, and you can buy them and sharing with your friends. They're given 10 sharing books by Mark Finley, and they're given to the people, and you ask them if they would like Bible studies. Now, this is the way that it worked. I was there. It was, I think, early March, and the meetings were going to be held in January, and they said, we want you to spend the next 3 to 4 months with your friends and invite them to be their friend, and then pray for them, and then invite them to come to receive Bible studies. Now, why only 10 books? Why not 50 books? Well, because they don't have much money there, and they'll be very careful with it. And so out of the 50 people you're praying for, you narrow down to 10 people that you could reach. And then, out of those 10 people you ask, 3 will say yes to a Bible studies. These are averages, but this is what they know what happens. And out of those 3 Bible studies, 1 will get baptized. So if the Victoria Church would like to baptize how many people this year? How many would you like to baptize this year? 20. Oh my, that's a big number. Okay? 20. How many Bible studies do you need to be giving? 60. How many people do you have to ask for Bible studies? Rule of 3. 180. 180. You've got to ask 180 people for Bible studies. How many people do you need to be praying for and making friends with? Multiply that by 5. Now you're talking 900. What it is that the pastor can't do it alone. You've got to develop the church into more people reaching out and touching lives. You see the numbers it takes for 20 baptisms? It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of people you're reaching out to. So can this work in North America? This is a small group meeting that I had the privilege of going to be with. Well, planting is key to a good harvest. I was amazed by that. The law of seed time and harvest that works so well up here in North America, I found that it works that way down there. You plant potatoes and then you harvest potatoes. It's a law of the farm. You reap what you sow. And the reason why they reap so many baptisms and converts into the church is because they do a lot of sowing. They do lots of planting. All we need to do here in North America is plant more. That's all. It really is. I love this one here. Success breeds success. If the minister would get out of the way, if they would go forth into new fields, the members would be obliged to bear responsibilities, and their capabilities would increase by use. So when I moved to Kalispell, Montana, I had 3 churches. Then I met this one family that lived in a place called Condon, Montana, about 70 miles south of where I was. And then I discovered another family in the area, and they didn't know each other. I got them to meet each other, and we started a church. The church over the years grew and was having a great success. I was very happy about that. But to be able to spend time with this 4th church, I had to reduce my time with my main church. Now, my main church had 150 people on a Sabbath morning. And now I'm going to go down to this church that has 20 people in it. Now, logic says you spend your time with the people with the most people, right? And I get this with churches all the time. We're the larger church, the pastors should spend more time with us. But my church of 150 people, I only showed up once a month. I spent less time with them than I did with my smaller churches. Wow, why did I do that? So they would what? Yes, I needed to train the new young churches, and I needed the older churches to start working. That's right. The larger churches have more talent. More talent. They need me less than the smaller churches. Did they grow in their ability? Yes, they grew. Those elders and those deacons grew in their ability. I remember one time I got a phone call from one of my elders. He said, Tom, he said, so-and-so has asked me to do a baby dedication for them. Could you teach me how to do that? I was hurt. I'm the pastor. I'm the one that does the baby dedications. And then it dawned on me, wait, I've succeeded. The people saw this elder more as their pastor than they saw me as their pastor. Was that bad? I felt terrible. Did I succeed? Yes. The church average, the whole 5 churches averaged 25 baptisms a year. Most of those baptisms took place in the church I was neglecting the most, because the members were working for God, and they liked it. They enjoyed it. So, what is the world's best tasting avocado? That was part of my goal, right? You know? Well, there's 2 types of avocado that were back then, Hass and Fuerte. You know the Hass. You know what the Hass is. It's that hard shell, dark, bumpy. The Fuerte is the light skin, and it's soft shell and light green. You can tell the difference between a Hass and a Fuerte just by touch. You know the difference. The best tasting avocado is the Fuerte. You can't get them anymore. You can only get the Hass. Now, why is that? The Hass was a freak of nature, happened in the 1950s. A guy down in Orange County, or Los Angeles, I think, went to the nursery, bought a tree, planted it in his yard, and it came out with a different types of fruit than normal. And he began to encourage other growers to use this. At first they resisted, but after a while they became to like it, and now it's the #1 avocado. Now, why is that? Well, that's because I think this is why. This is my argument. The Zutano, the one on the left, is the same exact look, shape, feel as the Fuerte. The growers cannot tell you what they are. There's only one way to tell the difference between a Zutano and a Fuerte. You have to taste it. Now, if you grow up in San Diego like I did, and that you know what different types of varieties of avocados there are, if somebody says they're selling me a Fuerte, I'm excited. But if you don't know the names of them and all you know is you look at it, if you've tried the Zutano, you end up rejecting the Fuerte. And that's what happened, is because as people expanded their taste, imagine Canadians eating avocados. When people started expanding their taste and trying avocados, they would try the Zutano and they say to themselves, the light skin, smooth, bad taste. Even though the Fuerte, in my opinion, is the best tasting avocado. The only way I can get a Fuerte now is to be down in San Diego in January at a farmer's market. Doesn't happen very often. Why do I tell you this? You may have been in a small group before, and you may have had a bad experience, or it didn't work out, or it fizzled out. Try not to reject it because of that experience. Try it again. Form your own small group. Because the advantage of the small group is it's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym by yourself, you're less likely to go. But if you have a partner that you'll meet at the gym, you'll be there every time because you don't want to let your partner down. But if it's just you, I'll go tomorrow. Or as we would say in San Diego, maybe mañana. So do not reject the idea of small groups just because you may have had a bad experience. There is the way God is doing a mighty work in South America, and the laws of seed and harvest will work here too. Now, you know the story of Shakleton? tried to cross he wanted to cross the South Pole, not the South Pole, but all of Antarctica. He put a team together to do that. Well, he got there, and their ship got crushed by the ice. And now there was a group of them. You can see the group there, all divided into 3 boats. They managed to escape and find dry land on Elephant Island. And they lived off of eating penguins, but after a while they realized, this is not next to a shipping lane. We're just not going to be able to ever be rescued. And so they put 6 men into one boat, and they went across the most treacherous, 1,000 miles across the most treacherous waters in the world. And they landed on South Georgia Island. Now, South Georgia Island was a whaling community. Problem is they were on the wrong side of the island. Now the ship, the boat they had was no longer able to cross. It was pretty battered, and they couldn't cross around the island. So they walked across this island. It's like the Swiss Alps there. It took them 3 days to cross the island. 3 men. At one point they got to along a ridge, and they were traveling along this ridge, and they got to the point where it was nothing but sheer cliffs all around them. And they realized if they turned back, it would become too dark, and they would freeze to death on that mountain. So they started chipping little steps to go into the mountain. It was now 4:30, and Shakleton realized, we're going to die on the side of this mountain with this slow pace we're at right now. So he chipped out a ledge, had all 3 men stand there with him, and then he proposed to coil up the rope, to have the men sit on the rope with legs around each other, and that they were going to just toboggan down the hill. The problem is it was over 1,000 feet drop, and they couldn't see the bottom because of the fog coming in. And the men said, well, what if there's a crevasse, or what if there's a big pile of rocks? We'll die. And Shakleton said, we may die if we do this, but if we remain up here, we will for sure die. And so they linked up. Shakleton lifted his legs up. They shot down the mountain. They screamed like little girls on a ball field. And they reached the bottom. And they went into a small bank. They didn't get hurt. And they were to complete their journey and go back and rescue their friends. If the church remains the way it is, and the slow growth, pastors in British Columbia on average baptize 3 people a year. That is slow growth. That is non-existent growth, because we are simply replacing the ones that we bury. Yes. And we'll be like the Sunday churches. But I believe that we see, with the role of seed time and harvest, I think we see in plenty of places where we can grow using the model that's working so well in South America. Now, what do I do for Bible studies? Let me just give you a little instruction. If you have a phone, you can do this with me. If you have an app, if you have an app store for your phone, I want to show you a Bible study that I like to use. Let me see if I can find it. It's called My Jesus. If you were to look up My Jesus, MYJESUS, there's a set of Bible studies that I have been using for the past 15 years that I absolutely love. You would just download My Jesus. Now, these Bible studies I love for several reasons, but let me share with you what they are. And you can turn off the projector now. I'm done with it. Thank you so much. Let me tell you why My Jesus is such a wonderful series. The first 9 Bible studies are there to give you faith in Christ. You become a friend of Jesus in the first 9 Bible studies. That's very important. You don't want to just go right into the distinct doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we would do the first 9 Bible studies on getting to know Jesus. The second thing I like about these Bible studies is they're in a question-answer format. It asks you a question. Then it gives you a Bible text. You read the Bible text, then you write down the answer, and after that, there's a little paragraph giving you more insight into that text and explaining the question more. So I like it is because the people who fill out that question, you can understand where their spiritual knowledge and level is. Sadly, It Is Written has just come out with a new Bible study series a couple of years ago. And they're excellent studies, except all you do is you fill out 1 or 2 words missing in the New King James Version. A monkey can do that. It doesn't help you know if the people have learned anything. This will have 15 questions, and they write out the answers. So what I do with and then finally, the reason why I like these Bible studies so much is that paragraph there is very helpful because it's a little comment on the question. Half the time, they're quotes from the Spirit of Prophecy, right from Ellen White's writings. Why do I want people introduced to Ellen White right away? That seems like that's kind of a strange thing to do. Well, it never says Ellen White. It just has a reference like Desire of Ages or something like that. The reason why I want to do that is because by the time the Bible studies are over, they're so in love with Ellen White's writings because she writes so many incredible zingers, amazing statements, that when you get to the end of the Bible studies and then you talk to them about the ministry of Ellen White, they're all ready to accept her. So Bible studies need to have question-answer format where you write out the answer. They should have statements from Ellen White so that the people will fall in love with Ellen White's writings. I've never had a problem with Ellen White's writings. Young man, I remember, 17 years old, came to our church in Abbotsford. He, right off the bat, was asking about Ellen White. Who is this Ellen White lady? I said, well, you'll learn about her. Let's just set up some Bible studies. Well, at the end of the 30 lessons, he fully accepts Ellen White as a prophet. Just because instead of dealing with the subject, he just read statement after statement from Ellen White. And that is why I think it's very important to have Bible studies. The series I used before that for the first 15 years of my ministry was Good News for Today by Don Gray. Same format, and he used Ellen White quotes in there. So I just find it just to be very powerful to do that. Anyways, you can use any Bible study you want if you follow this method. So you've got the Bible studies. Hopefully, did you all download this one already? My Jesus. What you do is you go to their house, you set up Bible studies. Now, how do you get a Bible study? This is how you get a Bible study, and this works most of the time for me. You make friends with people. They begin to really appreciate you. They're moved by who you are, what Jesus has done in your life. And then this is what they will say. This is often what happens. They'll say, what do Seventh-day Adventists believe? Now, I held this seminar over in east of here, and a guy was a potato farmer, and he had put an ad in Kijiji. He had 4,000 pounds of potato. I guess his little side job he did. And he put them up for sale. Well, they didn't all sell, so he put the ad in the Kijiji again. And this time he added, if you can't afford the potatoes, I'll give them to you for free and I'll deliver them. Well, one person called up and says, I can't afford the potatoes, but I would like them. And so he said, sure, I'll drop them off. And so he did, and he made friends with the guy. 2 weeks later, he calls up again, and he says, how are you doing? Do you need more potatoes? And the guy says, yes, I would like to have some more potatoes. And he says, okay, I'll deliver them to you. He says, I'll deliver them tomorrow morning on my way to church. He wasn't thinking at all about what he said. The man said, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, aren't you? He He says, yes, I am. He says, I had friends who were Seventh-day Adventists, really nice people. What do you believe? Or what do Seventh-day Adventists believe? You will find sometime in your life, when you're working with people, they're eventually going to ask you, what do Seventh-day Adventists believe? Do not answer them. Okay? This is how you get a Bible study. Do not answer the question. This is what you say. And this is what that gentleman said. He said, you know what? He says, that's a great question, but over the phone, I just simply can't answer it. Don't have time. But I have a series of Bible studies that I like to share with people that will cover that question and lots more from the Bible. Would you like it if I came to your house and we just went over this Bible study together? The guy said yes. And he started those Bible studies on Tuesday evening. If you've established a friendship of trust, 80% of the time, they're going to say yes to the Bible studies. Just ask them. If they say that. Now, in South America, it's a third of the time. That's fine. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you ask. If they ask you, you respond by saying, that's a great question. I have a series of Bible studies that will answer all that. Would you like to do them together? A lot of people will say yes to that. If you simply answer their curiosity at the moment, you've lost them. And because you've answered the curiosity and you're done. You want to set up Bible studies instead. It works like a charm. It's fun. You go to their house. If you have the paper studies, and I can share with you, Pastor, the paper studies, an electronic version, you can print them yourself. Or you do the My Jesus app. You do the first lesson together. Just do it together. And then hand them lesson 2 and 3, or they've got it on the app, they already have the lesson. And tell them to do the lesson on their own. And tell them, just do 3 to 4 questions a day so you can establish your own personal devotional life. You want them to become students of the Word. You do not want them to become your students. So I could give Bible studies directly from my Bible. I've got most of those texts memorized. I can do that. That's not what we want. We don't want disciples of ourselves. We want disciples of Jesus. That's why you use the lessons. So you want them to use the lessons so they become a direct disciple of Jesus. They answer 3 to 4 questions a day. They have 2 lessons done that week. When you get together, you simply do the lessons together, but you don't open your Bible. You're going to have a Bible study and you don't open the Bible. You're not having a Bible study. They've already had the Bible study on their own. What you're doing is you're just comparing your answers to make sure that they got the right question, got the question right. Now you're going to find that they didn't answer the questions right, and so depending on which question it was, that is the one you open up the Bible to. So if I have a Bible study with somebody and there's 15 questions and there's 15 Bible texts, I find myself during the first few Bible studies, I'll be looking up 5 or 6 Bible texts. But I don't look all of them up because you're going to go through 2 lessons. You don't have time to look them all up. And so you just look up the Bible texts that are there. And by the way, you're looking up Jeremiah, right? For a lesson, for a question, you're looking up Ezekiel. How quick are they going to find Jeremiah or Ezekiel? Not very fast. So how quickly are you going to find Jeremiah or Ezekiel? Just as slow as they are. When I look at my Bible, I'm just thumbing through it very slowly. Why? Because I'm not the teacher. I'm just a fellow student. Yeah, I may have a seminary degree, but it's going to take me just as long to find Ecclesiastes as it is for them. You know why? Because if it takes them a long time to find it in front of you, they're discouraged. and you don't want them to be discouraged. You're just another student looking up the same Bible text they are. So, and the funny thing is I've been doing Bible studies so much that when I look for Bible texts, I just go slowly through there, and people think, oh, the pastor can't find Isaiah. But I was giving Bible studies to a young man whose both parents were pastors, and he could not find Isaiah. Could not find Isaiah. Both parents are pastors, Sunday churches. So you want to just go slowly through it. You compare the lessons, you get the answers corrected, and then you give the next set of lessons, and it goes like that. Generally, it takes 15 weeks to do a full set of 30 lessons. If they don't have the lessons done, that's fine. It may turn out that they're the people that you just have to do the lesson together. It takes you 30 weeks because you can only do one lesson at a time. For people who turn out to be really good students, I give them 3 lessons a week. I even had one young man doing 4 lessons a week. Really fast. He was a good student. Your goal is not to be their teacher. Your goal is for them to become disciples of Jesus directly. While you're going through the lessons, you help them make decisions for Christ every time, and that helps to cement them into it. And then at the end, you invite the pastor to come in, and you guys go over the lessons, and the pastor helps them to make the decision to be baptized. But that's how Bible studies work. The most important thing is get yourself into some kind of small group, whether it's your Sabbath school lesson or something, and pray for your neighbors and your friends, minister to their needs, care for them, and then set yourself up for giving Bible studies. They're going to ask, and you can ask them sometimes, but often I just wait till they ask me, and then I set up the Bible lessons. You've been very, very kind people. Look at that time, so 10 minutes to 3. Thank you so much for your kindness and your patience with me. Any questions at all? Very good. Thank you so much.
Right. I think somebody can turn the mic. Green microphone. Thank you, Todd. All right, folks, if you enjoy the seminar, say amen. Amen. Just wanted to clarify, maybe some of you heard, for example, the name of Ellen White for the first time. You're wondering what is the role of Ellen White in the Adventist Church. Just want to let you know that there's a lot of misconception there outside the Adventist Church. Somebody even one day approached me and said, you guys are the ones that have 7 wives, right? Because you're called the seventh day. I said, no, I have only 1 wife. And not 7. There's a lot of misconceptions about a lot of things. As Donald Trump says, fake news, right? We definitely do not have 7 churches, and we definitely do not worship Ellen White. Ellen White is not considered to be authority over the Bible or at the same level of the Bible or anything like that. As a matter of fact, we believe that she definitely had a prophetic gift. She was a prolific American writer, the most translated North American writer in the world in so many languages. But we do not ask our baptismal candidates when they are baptized, do you believe in Ellen White? Absolutely not. But we do ask, do you believe in the spirit of prophecy? Because the Bible says that in the last days, your sons and daughters will prophesy. And we believe that this gift that was given, we believe persons like Ellen White, there's nothing stopping God to bring another prophet, even right now. So we as the church believe in the prophetic gift. We believe that, but we have to test everything. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom. Not everyone who says that they are a prophet will enter into the kingdom. So therefore, if you heard for the first time about Ellen White, we definitely encourage you to read some of the books like Steps to Christ. Because believe it or not, the first book, Steps to Christ, actually one of the books, was not even published by Adventist. It was actually published by the Baptist Church. The book Steps to Christ, the first edition that broke records in terms of sales, was not even printed by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It was printed by our brothers and sisters in the Baptist denomination. So we thank you for coming. This is just, unfortunately, this was the last presentation of Pastor Tom. Let's give him a hand of applause. And we hope you will come again, Pastor. You know, this is definitely been a blessed experience to have you with us. Now, we are going to encourage you to, if possible, if you want to change, you have 40 minutes to do that, and come to Shakleton. Now, Shakleton location, that's where we're going to start driving. It's 4401 Shakleton. If you have the GPS, this is the exact address of our new church property. And once again, we sold this building. We are here only until the end of the year, and then we're moving to the Lakeview Christian School for about 3 years until the new church is built. If you want to see the property today of the new church location, it's 4401 Shakleton Way, okay? And you will see a big property with it looks like a tiny house. It's not really tiny. It's a pretty big house there, but it looks tiny compared to the whole property. So wait for us, and everybody should be there at 3:30 because we're going to Jocelyn Hill. And there are some folks who know where Jocelyn Hill is, except we are not going to go the normal route. We're going to take the back roads route. Because if you take the normal route, you will end up walking for 2 hours just to reach the top. But if you follow us, thanks to Bruce Kuipers, is he here? He's the one that showed us, the ultimate hiker here in Victoria is Bruce. He showed us all the trails. So it's not a difficult trail, but it's going to be a little bit up the hill, and for about I should say half an hour, and you will be there at the top, maybe a little bit more, depending on how fast you walk. So looking forward. And Secret Sister, that sounds secret, huh? Secret Sister will be revealed. You know, that's a women's ministries. Women's ministry, that's for all the women, you know. We have a special, as Pastor said, small group ministries here. Women's ministries, right? So only women are invited to be there where the Secret Sister will be revealed, okay? You're coming to see what the Secret Sister is. All right? So folks, without any further ado, we have only 35 minutes before we leave. So God bless you. It takes 15 minutes to get to Shakleton, 4401. And we hope to see you there. God bless you. Thank you. If you need a ride, I have a minivan here in case somebody needs a ride. There's 2 people, okay? Anybody else? All right. Nobody else? In case you change your mind, you feel free to...